When I said, come on in and make yourself at home, it reminded me of the 80s when I used to have friends over. And in the 80s, no one took off their shoes. And in our house, because we were Korean, you had to take off your shoes. And it was so embarrassing for me to ask my friends to take off their shoes. And I remember I wouldn't do it. And then my parents would fucking scream at me and the kids, take off your shoes. Now, taking off your shoes is kind of I don't know, it's a normal thing. It's not like an Asian thing anymore. Anyway, I want to start with this. This is called Pecans, from a book called The Book of Delights. And it's just a collection of essays. But what I love about this book is it's taking moments of this person's life. He's a very talented writer, capturing moments and finding joy, right, at the end of the day. And one of the hardest things for me that I still struggle with is not putting weight on the big things that bring me happy, but training myself to find joy, to seek nectar, which is why I have a hummingbird on my bicep tattooed. Because I think most of my life, and I think especially living in Los Angeles, growing up in Los Angeles, and being attracted to the shine, chasing shiny things, all that. Okay. Among the delights of this delight, which when I first experienced it, it made me just about fall down, is that articulating precisely what delights me about it is difficult. Though someone behind me on this plane just said the word swallow, which means nothing to you yet, but hang on. She had a camera around her neck and smiled warmly at me, and her utterance for this delight is an utterance, and all an utterance can sometimes do was a commentary, a discourse on the South, patriarchy, and pecans, or Jim Crow, or pornography, or the possible weaponization of ejaculate that some pornography, some would say, endorses, or simply on oral sex, presumably with a male member involved. Fellatio is the Italian word, presumably in a relationship that is, at the very least, ambivalent. Don't worry, this is only 2 pages. At the very least, I told you this was going to be difficult. We met when a few of us were standing around signing books after a reading at the Arts Club of New York, a place where you were required to wear a jacket to get a drink after 5 p.m. She introduced herself and let me know she was a roommate of someone with whom I was on a panel about land and race in a backyard in New Orleans, where a pecan tree was dropping its nuts. Remember that phase? Dropping its nuts. Naturally, I had started cracking open the pecans by stepping on them and plucking the meat from the freckled shells, always to me like eating yummy little brains. A few of the people had joined the harvest, among them my whispering roommate, my co-panelist. My whisperer told me her roommate had, from that very tree, brought a bag of pecans back to Harlem. Now, I understand that Harlem no longer necessarily conveys the racial significance it once did, by which I mean to say, if you didn't know my whisperer was black, now you do, just as I am. Though a biracial northern man, and she a southerner, which made me truly throw my hands in the air and cheer, for I delight in few things more than the awakening or flourishing or a horticultural spirit, which this act of gleaming to me represented. I was imagining myself with some pride as the inspiration of said foraging said return to the bounty, both material and spiritual, of the land, which it turns out the panel had been about black people returning to the South. And that bag of pecans foraged in New Orleans and stowed in a satchel across the Mason-Dixon line represented to me some small though significant healing. Some Some salve on the centuries of violence and terror still underway, inflicted upon black people, though, through the land. How beautiful, I probably said to my whisperer. That's so lovely, I probably said. To which she leaned in and said, Pecans taste to me like the South is coming in my mouth. And then she told me she's a hugger. So we hugged. The Book of Delights. I love that story. I love that story because I didn't expect how kind of where it went, but and I also apologize. I don't read well. I'm a conceiver. I write. I don't read. I was the kid in middle school who was deathly afraid of being called to read, and I would literally take my finger and being like, Sally sat. I mean, I was horrible and embarrassed, and of course, when you're feeling that way and people are watching you, you collapse on yourself, and so I still have that residue at 51, and so when I'm reading, I'm very self conscious and it's not flowing. So I apologize for the way I read that, but what an amazing little snapshot of a moment, and pecans being like the South coming in my mouth. Oh, I needed to hear that story because going back to one of my practices, and in this episode, I just want to remind you, uh, we by default will put weight on the big things. And by the big things, I mean relationships. If you're single, trying to find your person, right? That is very taxing, can be weighing. Of course, business, career, all these goals that we have of building our empire and, doing big things in the world. And of course, those are important things. But I think if we don't actively get still and focus on moments, eye contact, little things like the joy a pecan can bring, dinner, conversations. Most of life is that, right? The phone ringing and you getting your big deal. That is not most of life. And yet that's what we are consumed with, right? The return kiss or the relationship turning into an engagement or having a baby. These are big things, but that's not most of life. Most of life lives in the day to day, the getting up, fighting our distorted thoughts, right? Getting the motivation to go move our bodies, trying to inject ourselves with hope and be positive, right? And for many, that is a uphill battle. That's most of life. And so the practice of gratitude, mindfulness, the practice of taking something as simple as a cup of coffee, in my case, which I'm gonna drink away from the microphone. One second. Or meals, or wrestling with your daughter, or watering the lawn. Like these things, I'm actively, and you really have to do them every day. I'm actively doing them, knowing that I'm rewiring myself, right? And I think this is what we have to think about, because if we just say, well, of course, we should be grateful, we should be in our present, we should be in our bodies, but if we're not actively, I mean, if we're not thinking about why and how that's going to help us, then it becomes giant should. Then it just becomes a list of things to check, right? Like your 100 emails in your inbox, and then we never get to it. So here's what I really want to tell you today. To rewire yourself, and at the end of the day, that's kind of what we're doing, right? Life from the beginning, childhood trauma, hardship, bullying, whatever you went through, kind of imprints us and dysregulates us and gets us to live in a state of panic, sometimes fight or flight. And then our adult life is spent, it's kind of sad, our adult life is now spent correcting, re-imprinting, rewiring, resetting, repositioning our bodies, our minds, our souls, you know? And many of us who are not actively practicing this, they live their entire lives in this state of panic and fight or flight, which I believe puts you at a very low frequency, and just good shit doesn't happen. You know, you're not like this. The image I always use is prism, right? You're not like this miracle where a greater power is working through you. You're like a clogged pipe, you know. When you're when you're living in a lower frequency and you're grayed out and you're discouraged and feeling hopeless, there's a you're clogged. When you're able to, through many years of practice, be grounded, find joy in moments, not put so much weight on the phone to ring or big things to happen. It's okay to want big things, right? I'm very ambitious. I want big things. I want toys. I want, I want to remodel my house. I have dreams. I want to build my empire. And that's okay. But here's the thing. I don't allow those big things to pause my life today. And I used to, and this is why I used to be a miserable fuck. I don't allow those things to pause my life today. And because those things aren't happening, my life today in this moment is a lot of waiting, or me not being allowing myself to be happy, or to produce joy. And so I know that I have to rewire myself, or I'm going to default to who I used to be, which was putting a lot of weight on the big things, that, chasing the shiny things. And so the way that I rewire myself is every moment that I'm free, getting out of my head, getting into moments. Today I'm going to probably go to the gym, but I'm going to take my motorcycle. And when I'm on my motorcycle, I'm going to play some music, most likely some 80s music. I'm the rare person that rolls up on a Harley at a street light playing like Cyndi Lauper, and I'm okay with it. I'm going to enjoy, let me take you through something. So like even the motorcycle, it's something as simple as a motorcycle ride. It's not just me riding a motorcycle. It's not transportation. It's I'm using it as a therapeutic tool. So to the gym, which is 20 minutes during a non-traffic time where the freeway turns into an ocean, right? And I feel like I'm on a surfboard, listening to music. So think about this, right? Think about this. I have audio. I'm having an audio experience. If the music is 90s or 80s, it's taking me back to nostalgia, right? To a different time. Because I have to be present or I'll die. I'm hitting flow states, right? I have wind on my face. So I'm having this body experience, this audio experience. And the vibration of the bike calms me, and I'm not able to think about taxes or emails or what I need to get done when I'm on my bike. So I'm out of my head. So in a way, there's a meditation happening. So all of that is happening for 20 minutes, right? Then I go in the gym. I try to be social, and I try to push myself as hard as I can. Now, I'm not saying for you to do that. This is just something that I enjoy. It's a challenge I put on myself with a Metcon, with a CrossFit workout. And I try to be healthy in a competitive way, right? So if I don't do that well, I don't beat myself up like I used to. I give myself grace, but I also push myself as hard as I can, right? So I get that. I get those chemicals. I get the dopamine. I get all that, and I get back on my bike and I come back. Now we're talking about 2 hours of my day, but think about this. Even those 2 hours, I'm changing my state. I'm getting out of my head. I'm getting out of my house. The big thing that I recommend people do when they're going through a breakup, out of the mantra is out of your head, out of your house. I'm getting in a sweat, feeling better about my body. I'm actively working on my body. movement. And then when I get home, I have a reset, right? And so then when I start working, I have now added primer, if you will. I primed myself. And then with work, while I'm working and being creative, creating a space for that, I'm also actively being aware. I'm being aware of my thinking, my thoughts, what's getting me to collapse on myself or be pessimistic or anything that produces a feeling of hopelessness. I try to catch before I start slipping into that slippery well, and I try to replace or think of a different thought. And again, this isn't something that most people do unless they're consciously doing it. It's like it's like Kegels. No one fucking does Kegels. You know what Kegels are? It's like that weird muscle down there. Uh, it's the muscle that makes that if you squeeze it, you don't pee. It's that muscle. And I don't really. Men do it so they can have more control over their ejaculations. I think women do it. I don't know, for other reasons. I mean, it's healthy. It's whatever. But no one does them. Like we'll learn about it. We'll see it on our on our social media and be like, oh, I should do some of that. It has these benefits. Does anyone sit there and do fucking Kegels? No. And I really feel like this this practice of finding joy in moments, this practice of collecting the coins throughout the rainbow, not waiting for the giant pot at the end of the rainbow, right? That this is like the Kegels thing, It's like if we're not actively thinking about it, it usually falls by the wayside because we're busy getting shit done. We're busy, consumed in our thoughts. We're future tripping. We're dwelling on the past. We're wishing. We're waiting. We're hoping. All of these things that are kind of like flimsy and not contributing to rewiring ourselves. I know that was very long-winded, but it's just a reminder that today maybe you could get some of that in. And what would that look like for you, right? What would that look like for you? One of the things that I love doing, and I'm using this as an example because it's so simple. I like watering my lawn. We have this big backyard, and right when the sun kind of goes down, when it's not too hot, I just like standing there watering my lawn. It makes me feel good. There's a part of it I think that reminds me of the '80s when everyone was watering their lawn for hours. But something as simple as watering your lawn. And sometimes I'll listen to an audiobook or a podcast, or sometimes I'll just, listen to the birds. But even something as simple as that can be a form of rewiring. Anything that kind of pulls you out of your distorted thought, the spinning thoughts, that get you to drop into your body. Anything that encourages presence, gratitude, hope, any higher frequencies, right? Those are good things. Those are rewiring things. A meaningful conversation with a friend. That's to me that's a really good imprint. I was talking to a friend. Speaking of conversations with friends, I was talking to a friend yesterday. We were having Korean barbecue, and we were talking about Italy. He went to Italy recently. He said, "You know what? You know what's amazing about Italy?" And so he went to Lake Como, which is kind of like I've never been there, but I'm assuming it's like a fancy. It could be kind of bougie. It could be, I don't know. But he said it wasn't. It was the fact that in Italy, they're not obsessed with uh, building things. They're not obsessed with building their empires. They're just because I said, what was some of your favorite things to do? And he said, you know what? It was just sitting at a cafe having an espresso. That was amazing. And I was thinking, you could do that in LA. Why? What's different doing that in Italy? Now, of course, you're in a different country. The aesthetics are beautiful. There's buildings from the 1800s, and it's like the cobblestones, and the buildings are like works of art. I get all that, but it's a cultural thing, And I remember when I went to Florence, everything shut down I think at lunch. Like everything shut down. I don't know if there was a bell that rang, but I remember everything like stopped work at lunch. And I remember they just took a legit like the clothes stores the shops closed for like an hour or two, and they had their break. And I was thinking, wow, this would never happen in the States. In the middle of the day, we just shut down, you know. Um, but I think that's what he enjoyed the most was the reminder that the reminder to seek nectar, the reminder that joy can come in moments. And I think it's such an important piece to our happiness. And if we don't consciously do it because of society, because of, just scrolling and the things that we see that we want, and then we start to think that, well, we're less than or defective or our lives suck, the comparison trap. Because all of that is happening at all times, it's going to be really hard to be happy, you know? So we have to really train ourselves to have the capacity, the ability to find joy. And if we don't, I think it's going to be impossible to be happy. Because if you're saying to yourself, once I get, once I find love, or once I have a baby, or once I, whatever is it that you want, right? Once I buy the house, or once I build my empire, then I'm going to be happy. That's a trap. That's not true. You may get those things, and they may bring you joy, but if you don't have the ability to find joy and happy in what you have right now, and I gotta say, because I've been here, many people don't have shit right now, right? And I get that. I was at a point in my life, maybe 15 years ago, where all I could afford was styrofoam coffee and one donut and Wayne Dyer in my ear, and I would just take long walks, dreaming and wishing and wanting, right? So I get when you don't have anything, it's really hard to be grateful for things, right? But if you don't have the ability to find joy in your life now, when you do get the big things, the way that you think is still the same. So they're only going to make you happy for a little bit of time, and then you're going to want bigger things, right? It's just this pattern. And so just reminding you today, and also note to self, to seek nectar and find joy in the little things, like pecans. Thank you for listening. Be well.